So today's cardinal lesson, Social Security claiming strategy. And this is just one strategy, and it'll be an example. We've talked about Harry and Helen before, and we showed you what we recommended to them about a year or two ago. And then today we're updating it. The new Social Security statements are up. We're going to be showing you those later in the show. And we're going to reframe or come up with a different option and an alternate strategy for them. So you got a lot to look forward to. Tom, why are we doing this video?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing this video because Social Security is one of the most important decisions you're going to make in retirement. Whatever decision you make on this lives with you the rest of your lives. And so you need to get it right. And I want you thinking about not only now, but also what is your 80, 85-year-old self going to be thinking about? Because that check is going to be more important to that person than it is when you're 65, 70. And again, I want you thinking through what impact this has on you, but also on your spouse if you're married, because that's an important piece of the conversation. So let me bring up the show notes. You can find these at the link below our video. They're also on our website at cardinalguide.com. We have the board. We'll get into the examples for Harry and Helen in a second. We'll come back to this as the show goes on, but we actually have their Social Security statements pulled up in the show notes, again, redacted with any personal information on there. So you can see the amounts they get at different ages. The first one is Harry's, the next one is Helen's. And again, we'll get through the examples here as we go through the board. So let me turn it back to Hans, and we'll just walk through the board piece by piece.
Okay, so, the first point that we want to make is that the benefit claiming strategy is complex for couples and high earners, especially high earners. Harry's a high earner. Helen has been a low earner because she's basically been Harry's wife and taking care of the home and has not worked outside the home since they had children. So we're going to look at her strategy. And Helen is about a year and a few months younger than Harry. So we're going to go through and use them as an example. But I just want to bring up that if you're a high earner, period, whether you have a spouse or not, but specifically a high earner and you're a couple, and your spouse is a lower earner, or even if she's a high earner or she's a high earner, it's complex the more money you make and have made during your life. Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the strategies, the more variables you add in, the more complicated the decision gets. At the end of the day, if you just need the money, none of this math matters. None of these strategies matters. You're just going to take the check because you need it. And that's fine, right? We're not opposed to that at all. But it's when these people who are high earners, they have options, they start thinking about how to take it. This is where we see mistakes happen. So that's why we're going through the example here. Sort of the next one of the important pieces to know about spousal benefits, because that's really what's underlying a lot of the decisions on these examples here, is if you have a lower earning spouse, maybe it was a stay-at-home mom or dad or someone for whatever reason doesn't have the same level of earnings as the higher spouse, what they're eligible for is 50% of the higher earners' full retirement age benefits. I'll come back to that in a second here, but essentially what that allows is the spouse to claim a check even if they don't have the same working history, and it's 50% of the check. And that's a number that's often quoted. What's really important to understand is this 50% is not of whatever check they're going to take. So if we're looking at on the board, we have the examples at the different ages for Harry and Helen. What you'll see is Harry's full retirement age benefit is $3,993. At 66 and 8 months, that's what he is eligible for. Now, if he waits till 70, he's going to get $5,176, right? Over $5,000 a month. So what I see a lot of people make the mistake thinking is, oh, Harry's going to wait to get the $5,000 a month. Helen will then file for the spousal benefit and get half of the $5,000. That's not how it works, right? So to be able to get it's 50% of the full retirement age benefit, the $3,993, even if Harry waits till 70 to claim. So again, that's an important number to keep in mind, because some people say, I'll wait. If you're Harry in this example, I'll wait, I'll get the higher check, and then my spouse gets half of that higher check. That's not how that works. So again, I want you to, and in the examples, we'll walk through that, but that's an important thing to know here. So Hans, what's the next point on the board here?
So the lower earner, which in this case it's Helen, must wait until he or she reaches full retirement age. Okay, in our example. So when we dealt with them a year ago, year and a half, Helen was just 65 and she wanted that check. It was less than 874 a month. She wanted that check of like 700. They didn't need it, but she liked having some money coming in under her name. It was tempting. And what we pointed out to her is she needs to wait until she is full retirement age, which for her is 66 and 10 months. She was born in 1959. And that's going to be August of this year. So she's got to wait to get her benefit. Well, she doesn't have to wait, but she's, under our strategy, we're going to recommend she wait, because if she takes it before full retirement, she's going to diminish the spousal benefit, which she's going to get later when Harry files. So, Tom?
Yeah, I mean the math gets a little bit complicated, and if you have specific questions, you can reach out and we can walk you through it. But if she filed before her full retirement age benefit, her portion of that check would be permanently reduced, even if she then files for the spousal benefit later. So that's why it often makes sense for that lower earning spouse to wait until their full retirement age to file, because that's how they get the full 50% amount here. Another really important piece in all of this is she can't claim that spousal benefit, that 50% benefit, until Harry files. That's really the issue we're getting at the video here, right? I mean, the question becomes, if she can't get that 50% until Harry files, and Harry waits till 70, well, that's reducing her ability to get that 50% until he actually files for checks. And so that's an important piece, of, right? I mean, that brings up an idea, a thought, and this is plan number 2, we'll get to in a second, is should he file sooner than age 70 so she can get that 50% earlier than having to wait till he files till 70. So again, to simplify that, and we have it on the board here, the higher earner must file before the lower earning spouse can claim that spousal benefit.
Okay. Now, when the first spouse dies, the survivor lives on with the larger check. This is the big motivation of most of our people that wait till 70, and it's Harry's motivation. And in our recommendation, Harry waits till 70, he's going to get 51.76 a month, adjusted for inflation, so it'll be a little higher than that. But it's that amount of check. When one of these two passes away, the other one lives on as a widower. The smaller check, Helen's check, is going to go away, even if Helen is the one that that lives on. The smaller check stops when the first spouse dies. So we got Harry wait until 70 so that somebody's going to collect over $60,000 a year in Social Security when they're just on one check. That's the motivation. Tom?
Yeah, and I think that's an important piece of it, right? And the hard part about all of this is obviously no one knows how long we're going to live, right? I mean, if we have a lower life expectancy, if you have some terminal illness or something, that can change the math here. And so a little bit of it is a guessing game. We'll get into sort of the break-even points a little bit later in the video here. But part of the reason of delaying that check for Harry is that someone is going to get that higher check for as long as either one of them is alive, which is an important piece to remember. And then the last portion on the top of the board is if Helen's own benefit was closer to $2,000, then there really isn't much of this same type of decision making doesn't exist, right? Because essentially her own check exceeds the 50% benefit that she's eligible for as a spousal benefit. So another way to put that is if your own benefit, if you have enough working history where your own benefit is higher than half of your spouse's benefit, then you don't need to worry about the spousal piece of it. Now, the survivor piece, when one spouse passes away, that still comes into play. But the question about do I file relative to my other spouse, again, from a spousal benefit standpoint, doesn't matter if your own check is higher than 50% of the other spouse there. So let me go through sort of plan number 1. This is sort of what we had laid out to them initially. And then Hans will go over plan number 2 to talk about sort of an alternative way to think of this, or maybe an alternative strategy here. So plan number 1, fundamentally, we have Harry waiting till 70 to file for his Social Security check, and Helen filing for her own check at her full retirement age. So let me go through the numbers, how that works. So Helen gets to her full retirement age later this year. She files for her benefit. She's going to get $874 a month starting at that point. And she collects that $874 all the way until Harry files for his own benefit, which is at age 70, and then her benefit gets stepped up to the 50% of Harry's full retirement age benefit. So what she would get at that point is 1,996. One side note on these examples, we've ignored any cost living adjustment because they would be the same in all the scenarios. So let's just assume no increases on these. In reality, these checks do get bumped up every year with cost living adjustments. So we know that, but for the example purposes, we've ignored that here. So Harry files at age 70. He starts collecting 5,176 at age 70. That's when Helen files for the spousal benefit. She gets the 1996. So together, they're getting over $7,000 a month, 7,172 a month from Social Security alone, right? That is a very nice, high base level of income that they're going to get for the rest of their lives, right? And so that's really nice. And then when the first spouse passes, let's assume Harry dies first, Helen will then continue receiving that 5,176 for the rest of her life. So that's sort of example one. That's sort of where our default plan is for them. But we're going to go over an alternative example in plan number two. So Hans, why don't you go over that?
Yeah. So, on plan one, I mean, the deal is that when she reaches full retirement age, she's going to collect, which is August this year, she's going to collect $874 a month till the time Harry files for Social Security. So they're going to have some Social Security income coming in. And then they're going to go to that big check when Harry is 70, which is 2 years from July. Then he's going to get the age 70 benefit, and then she is going to upgrade from her own benefit of 874 to about 2,000 a month. So what brings about plan number two is you start looking at this and you're saying that Helen is going to get just 874 a month starting this August for 2 years. And if Harry would file, then she could get the spousal benefit starting this August. So the 874 would go to about 2,000 a month. So right off the bat, we got $1,100 a month more, a little more than $1,100 a month, that Helen is going to get of an increase in her check for 2 years, or 2 years ahead of time. And so that's really what brings upon plan number two. But the downside of that is Harry would now need to file. He'll be 68 in order to enable Helen to get the 50% spousal benefit. He'd need to file at 68. And then instead of getting 5176 for life, he's going to get 4298 a month for life. And then the survivor is going to be living on with the 4298 instead of 5176. So that's really the downside to strategy of plan number two. The upside to that is they're going to have some significant increased cash flow for 2 years. I mean, it's hard to walk away from that. And so they're going to seriously consider is during the first 2 years, during from July of 2026 to July of 2028, they're going to collect $130,000 of money they wouldn't have otherwise gotten. And these people are well off enough, they're not going to spend that money. They are going to pay taxes on it. And with saving you the calculations of the taxation on Social Security, they're going to pay about $35,000 in taxes on that $130,000. So that's going to bring their net down to about $95,000. So they're going to be $95,000 in the bank, taxes paid ahead of plan number one. And it's hard not to take a look at this. So $95,000 ahead, then what they could do with that is put it in an annuity that pays for the life of both of them. And we're probably going to end up at the same place of they're going to receive a check for the difference between 5176 and 4298. So they're going to end up, by the time you add in that annuity payment, and I'm not saying that's exactly what they're going to do, but it's hard to argue with 95 grand in the bank. Now, a point I also want to make is this annuity payment wouldn't be adjusted for inflation. So this is kind of like, I'm not so sure how much time these people are going to spend on this, but we've prepared this for them, and I think they're going to get some real value out of the explanation and at least being given the choice. Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the ways to think about this, right? I mean, Han just walked through the math of like if they take it sooner, how much more are they going to receive over the next 2 years, right? $130,000 more, which is a meaningful amount of money, right? That they're getting, that they can save, they can invest, they can do whatever they want with that. The question then becomes, okay, if we do plan one and we're waiting, how long? Because once we start getting that higher check at Harry's age 70, they're going to get that for the rest of both of their lives, right? The 5176 and then also the 1996, which again, the difference between those numbers is $878 a month more by having waited. So the question becomes, how much longer would they need to receive those checks to make up the 130,000 they got over that 2 years? When you do the math, it's about 12 years, just a little over 12 years. So again, that's about, to what would be Harry's age 82. So 12 years after Harry's age 70. If one of them lives past that point, they're going to give more from plan one, more from Social Security from plan one than they would with plan two. So not saying that needs to be the deciding factor, but that's another piece of one of the things, how to think about the claiming strategy. So again, ultimately with Social Security, you need to have a thoughtful plan about how to take it, when to take it, because again, that decision is going to be with you the rest of your life. If you just need the money and you need the money, then take it, right? No, don't run through all these exercises and doing all the math and stuff. If you need the money, go ahead and take it. But if you have resources to live on, especially if you're still working and those type of things, really would consider waiting at least some amount before filing, because again, that higher check is going to last the rest of your life. So at the end of the day, we just want you to think of Social Security as part of a larger plan. If you're married, I want you thinking of not only your benefit, but also the spousal benefit and the survivor benefit. I see people make that mistake all the time, is they're just looking at their own check. They say, I'm not going to live to 82. I'll just go ahead and file now. And they're ignoring the benefit of the spouse piece of that, which I think is short-sighted. So again, we just want you to think through it, have it part of a larger plan. We can help with that if you have questions. Hans, I don't know if you have anything else to say here.
I'd like you to bring up the show notes, Tom.
Sure.
And I'd like you to show both of their Social Security statements. You can download these, but you can just look at them. All these numbers here in the example come right off of these statements. And we waited to do this video until they got updated where the 2025 earnings are on there. It didn't make a difference for Helen, but it did for Harry. And so I would encourage you to be pulling your own Social Security statement regularly. And if you call us for planning and you ask us questions, it'd be a good idea to just download this first and look at it and just keep up with it. And when we do financial planning, we're going to want to see your most current statement so we can give you this kind of advice. So I want to go over what we talked about, how all of this Social Security planning relates into the comprehensive planning and the 7 worries. I mean, this show has obviously been about Social Security today. And I'm just going to point out is that these people that are delaying their Social Security till 70, but they're already retired, what we're doing in the planning is we're pulling essentially a Social Security check out of their IRA, because most of these people that have a high Social Security check and can wait till 70, they got a big IRA balance, and we're going to start winding that down and paying them a Social Security check out of their IRA. So that's the place we go for Social Security replacement or create a Social Security bridge. Income is a big section in the retirement plans that we create, and Social Security is the base income. And then we talked a little bit about taxes, and this is one of the downsides of this, is that they're in the highest tax bracket, or one of the very close to the highest tax bracket. And so when they collect this Social Security, in this example, they're from 68 to 70, they're paying a pretty good clip of taxes on that money. But sooner these people are going to make a lot of money for the rest of their life, so they're going to be in a high tax bracket anyhow. So I want to bring Tom back on. I'm Hans Scheil,
And I'm Tom Griffith.
and we thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.